The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched higher than any cathedral on Earth. Thousands of beings, from hundreds of worlds, filled the seats, their forms ranging from towering giants to small floating orbs of light. At the center podium stood Han Ji-woo, his simple gray suit looking plain among the elaborate garments and natural displays of the alien dignitaries around him. He held up a small device, no larger than his palm. The holographic display above showed complex energy patterns flowing through crystalline structures. "Honorable members of the Council," Ji-woo said, his voice calm and proud. "Earth is pleased to present the Mark 7 Energy Converter. This device can transform any radiation into usable power with 98% efficiency. We offer this technology freely to all Council members, as we have done with our previous innovations." The chamber filled with polite clicking, humming, and other sounds that passed for applause among the various species. Ji-woo smiled, believing this was appreciation. He had represented Earth for 5 years now, and every time he brought a gift, the Council seemed pleased. In the front row, Council Speaker Velther leaned back in his seat. His reptilian face showed nothing, but his tail twitched in a way his own people would recognize as amusement. Another gift from the eager humans. How convenient. After the presentation, Ji-woo walked through the diplomatic halls with Park Min-ho, the scientist who had spent 10 years developing the converter. Min-ho's face showed less enthusiasm than Ji-woo's. "They barely thanked us," Min-ho said quietly. "They're formal people," Ji-woo replied. "Different cultures, different ways of showing gratitude. For 30 years, Ji-woo, 30 years we've given them fusion technology, medical advances, agricultural improvements, ship designs. What have they given us?" Ji-woo stopped walking. "They gave us a place in the galaxy. They welcomed us when we were alone." Min-ho said nothing, but his expression spoke clearly. He didn't agree. Across the station, in the military liaison office, Kim Sora sat at her desk reviewing security reports. Her job was to monitor potential threats to human interests, and lately she found more questions than answers. Human ships were often denied docking at certain stations. Human trade requests were delayed for months. Applications for humans to join Council research projects were rejected without explanation. She pulled up another file. This one made her frown. A human colony had requested emergency medical supplies 3 months ago. The Council had approved the request, but the supplies were still sitting in a warehouse on a Council world, marked as low priority. Her communicator buzzed. It was her assistant. "Colonel Kim, you asked me to flag any unusual file transfers from Council servers. What did you find?" "Someone accessed the classified chambers database an hour ago. The access code was legitimate, but the login location was odd. It came from Ambassador Han's personal quarters." Sora's eyes narrowed. Ji-woo wouldn't access classified files. He followed every rule perfectly. "Send me the details." That night, Sora stood outside Ji-woo's door. When he answered, she saw immediately that something had changed. His face was pale, and his hands shook slightly. "Come in," he said quietly. Inside, his wall screen showed document after document. Sora began reading and felt her blood turn cold. Internal Council memos. Classified humans as servant species. Category 3. Reports discussing how to maximize resource extraction from human generosity before technological parity is achieved. Vote. Records showing humans had been rejected from every major Council committee for the past 20 years. Trade agreements that specifically excluded human merchants from protected routes. Military assessments that rated humanity as minimal threat, maximum utility. One document made Sora's jaw clench. It was a contingency plan titled Human Compliance Protocol. It detailed exactly how the Council would use Military force to suppress Earth if humans ever stopped being cooperative. How long have you known? She asked. I found the first files 2 days ago, Jiwoo said. His voice sounded hollow. I've been collecting more since then. I kept thinking I would find something that explained it, something that made it make sense. And there's nothing. They've been using us from the beginning. Every smile, every polite word, every time they accepted our gifts. They were laughing at us. We're not partners. We're tools. Sora sat down heavily. We need to tell Earth. I've already sent an encrypted package to President Choi. She had it by morning. They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Sora spoke. What do you think we should do? Jiwoo looked at the documents on his screens. 30 years of human effort, human genius, human hope, all treated as tribute from a lesser species. He thought about every scientist who had worked themselves to exhaustion developing gifts for the Council. Every diplomat who had carefully learned alien customs. Every human who had believed they were building a better galaxy. I don't know yet, he said. But I know one thing. They wanted us to be servants. They wanted us to know our place. He looked at Sora, and she saw something new in his eyes. Not anger. Something colder. Maybe it's time we showed them what happens when humans learn the lessons they teach. 3 days later, President Choi Daein sat in the emergency session of the World Council on Earth. Every nation's representative was present. Every colony had sent delegates. The chamber was silent as Jiwoo's evidence played on the screens. When it finished, Choi stood. We have a choice to make. We can demand apologies. We can threaten war. We can beg for respect. She paused. Or we can do something else entirely. In the back of the room, Park Min-ho whispered to his assistant. Prepare Protocol Empty Sky. Authorization Level 1. The assistant's eyes widened. Sir, that will affect every system we've ever installed in Council space. I know, Min-ho said. That's exactly the point. The vote took 6 hours. When it finished, the result was unprecedented in human history. Every nation on Earth agreed. Every colony in human space agreed. Every station, every settlement, every ship. The decision was unanimous. Complete withdrawal. President Choi stood before the cameras, broadcasting to all of humanity. Her face was calm, but those who knew her could see the steel beneath. Fellow humans, she began. Today we learned what we truly mean to the Galactic Council. We are not partners. We are not friends. We are resources to be used. She paused. Therefore, effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all Council activities. We will close our borders. We will cease all communication. We will end all trade. This is not a negotiation. This is not a protest. This is simply us walking away. On Proxima Station, Colony Administrator Lee Hyun gathered his people in the main hall. The station housed 3,000 humans and had regular visits from alien traders and researchers. Pack everything, Hyun said. Every piece of human technology, every data file, every sample. If it came from Earth or was made by human hands, it goes with us. A young technician raised her hand. Administrator, the Council researchers have equipment stored here. The medical bay has alien patients receiving treatment. What about them? The researchers have 6 hours to collect their equipment. The patients will be stabilized and transferred to Council medical ships. Then we seal the station. No exceptions. But sir, some of these patients will die if moved too soon. Hyun's face hardened. Then the Council should have thought about that before they classified us as servants. We're not their doctors anymore. We're not their anything anymore. Across human space, the same scene repeated. Human ships docked at alien stations departed within hours. Human workers left their posts. Human traders packed their goods and went home. Human researchers deleted their data and closed their laboratories. The aliens didn't understand at first. They thought it was a protest, something that would end when humans made their point. They kept sending messages, kept trying to dock at human stations, kept expecting things to return to normal. They were wrong. Yang Jisoo had tried to warn them years ago. She was a cultural anthropologist who had studied human history extensively. She had written papers about human dignity, about what happened when humans felt betrayed. The council had dismissed her work as irrelevant. Now she stood in the Earth archives, organizing humanity's complete withdrawal from galactic society. Delete every translation program we gave them, she told her team. Remove every cultural guide, every diplomatic manual, every piece of information that helps them understand us. Professor, one of her students said, this seems cruel. Jisoo looked at him coldly. They thought we were pets. Useful animals who would keep performing tricks for scraps of approval. Let them try to understand us now. Park Min-ho worked day and night in his laboratory. Protocol Empty Sky was elegant in its simplicity. Every piece of technology humans had given the council contained a hidden element. Not a virus, not a bomb. Just a dependency. Human technology was designed to work together, to support itself through networked updates and maintenance. Without human oversight, without the constant small adjustments that human engineers provided, the systems would slowly degrade. Nothing catastrophic, nothing obvious. Just a slow, steady decline into malfunction. How long until they notice? His assistant asked. 6 months for the first failures, Min-ho said. 18 months until cascade begins. 3 years until total collapse. He smiled without humor. We built their golden age. Let's see how they maintain it without us. Kim Sora had a different task. She was compiling military intelligence, and what she found was sobering. The council was planning to move against us within 5 years. She reported to President Choi. They identified Earth as a potential threat once our technology reached parity with theirs. The plan was to destroy our shipyards, occupy our key colonies, and reduce humanity to a controlled population. Choi's expression didn't change. How confident were they of success? Very. They didn't think we'd fight back. They thought we were too soft, too eager to please. Good, Choi said. Let them keep thinking that. Pull back all our ships to defensive positions. Activate the deep space sensor networks. If any council ship enters human space without permission, destroy it without warning. No communication, no demands to surrender. Just elimination. That's an act of war. No, Choi corrected. War requires two sides talking. We're not talking anymore. 3 months after withdrawal, the first council delegation arrived at Earth. Their ship was state-of-the-art, carrying diplomats from 5 major species. They transmitted requests to land every hour. Earth's response was silence. The ship waited in orbit for 2 weeks. Human defense satellites tracked it constantly. Weapons locked, but no one fired. No one communicated. The ship simply existed in a bubble of absolute human disinterest. Finally, the delegation left. A month later, another ship came. This one carried Council Speaker Velther himself. Surely humanity would talk to him. He had been their liaison for 30 years. Earth's defense grid powered up. Targeting solutions locked onto his ship. The message was clear without a single word. Leave or be destroyed. Velther left. Back on the Council homeworld, panic was starting to set in. The first energy converters began showing errors. Medical equipment gave incorrect readings. Agricultural systems produced 20% less than projected. Nothing major yet, but the trend was clear. Contact the humans, one council member demanded. Offer them anything. We've tried. another replied. They don't answer. Then go to Earth, land a ship. Make them talk to us. 3 ships have tried. All 3 were targeted by weapons that shouldn't exist. Human military technology is decades beyond what we knew they had. They've been hiding it. The chamber fell silent. They were never weak, someone whispered. They were just kind. And we mistook kindness for weakness. On Earth, Han Ji-woo watched the reports coming in from observation posts at the edges of Council space. He saw the confusion, the mounting fear, the desperate attempts at communication. He felt nothing. President Choi visited him in his office. Some people are saying we should respond. That we've made our point. Ji-woo looked at her. Have we? Do they understand yet what they've lost? They're starting to. Then we wait, Ji-woo said. We wait until they truly understand. We wait until silence is all they hear when they think of humanity. We wait until our absence is louder than our presence ever was. Choi nodded slowly. And if they attack? Then they learn that humans can be more than generous. His voice was ice. They learn what we kept hidden while we were being kind. 6 months had passed since the last human voice spoke to the Galactic Council. The silence was becoming unbearable. Kang Minji commanded the cargo ship Soul's Pride, the last human vessel to leave Council space. She had spent weeks making sure every human civilian made it home safely. Now she stood on the bridge, watching the border markers of human territory grow closer. Captain, her navigator said, we're being followed. 3 Council security ships. Ignore them, Minji said calmly. They can follow us all the way to the border if they want. The Council ships kept transmitting. Requests to stop. Demands for explanation. Pleas for dialogue. Minji's communications officer looked at her questioningly each time a new message arrived. Don't even acknowledge them, Minji said. They're already ghosts to us. When her ship crossed into human space, the 3 Council vessels stopped at the border. They couldn't follow. The automated defense network beyond that line would destroy them instantly. Minji watched them hovering there, uncertain, before finally turning back. She felt nothing for them. Not anger, not satisfaction. Just emptiness where her feelings for the Council used to be. On a research station near the Crab Nebula, An Jun-ho faced a harder choice. He was a xenobiologist who had worked alongside alien scientists for 8 years. They weren't politicians or council members. They were researchers like him, people who cared about discovery. His colleague Thresh approached him in the lab. Thresh was a gentle being, covered in soft fur, with large eyes that showed obvious distress. Jun-ho, please, Thresh said. Just tell me why. Tell me what we did wrong. Jun-ho continued packing his equipment. I can't. We're friends. We've worked together for years. I've been to your daughter's birthday party. You've met my hatchlings. Jun-ho's hands stopped moving for a moment. Then he resumed packing. I'm sorry, Thresh. I truly am. But I have my orders. Orders? Since when do humans follow orders that cruel? Since we learned what the Council really thinks of us. But I never thought that. I never treated you as lesser. Jun-ho looked at him then. Did you know? Did you know what the Council was doing to us? Thresh hesitated. That hesitation told Jun-ho everything. You knew, Jun-ho said quietly. Maybe not all of it, but you knew something. And you said nothing. I didn't think it was my place. I'm just a scientist. Jun-ho picked up the last of his equipment. And I'm just following my orders. Goodbye, Thresh. He walked out, leaving Thresh standing alone in the lab. Behind him, he heard something that might have been crying, translated through an alien throat. Jun-ho kept walking. The economic collapse began slowly, then accelerated. Human trade routes had connected hundreds of worlds. Human merchants had been the reliable middle parties in thousands of deals. Human banking systems had processed transactions across light years. All of it stopped. A merchant captain from the real species stood in front of his idle ship, watching his crew disperse. Without human trade connections, he couldn't find cargo. Without cargo, he couldn't pay his crew. Without his crew, his ship was just an expensive piece of metal. 30 years, he muttered. 30 years I built relationships with human traders. They were fair, honest, and reliable. And we treated them like... He couldn't finish the sentence. His first mate stood beside him. The council said they were just useful primitives, that we were doing them a favor by letting them serve us. The council were fools. And we were fools for listening. Across council space, the technological failures multiplied. The energy converters weren't the only problem. Medical diagnostic equipment began giving false readings. Ship engines ran at decreased efficiency. Communication relays developed strange delays. Agriculture systems miscalculated nutrient delivery. Engineering teams tried to fix the problems, but they discovered something disturbing. Human technology was integrated into almost everything. The humans hadn't just given them devices. They'd fundamentally restructured how council civilization functioned. And the humans had done it so smoothly, so helpfully, that no one had noticed the dependency until it was too late. It's like they built us a house, one engineer explained to his supervisor. A beautiful house. But they took all the blueprints with them. We can see the walls falling apart, but we don't know how they fit together in the first place. Council Speaker Velther stood before the emergency session. The chamber was half empty. Many species had already stopped attending, focusing on their own crises. We must make the humans talk to us, he declared. Send a formal apology. Offer them full council membership with no restrictions. Give them anything they ask for. We've sent 12 apologies, someone replied tiredly. All of them are floating in space, unread. Then send ambassadors to Earth. We did. They were turned away without a word. One ship got too close and was destroyed by weapons we didn't know humans possessed. Velther's tail twitched in agitation. This is absurd. Every species can be negotiated with. Every species has a price. An old diplomat from the Kelvin species stood slowly. Perhaps, she said, humans have decided we are not worth their price. The chamber fell silent. That's ridiculous, Velther snapped. We are the Galactic Council. We represent thousands of civilizations across millions of stars. And yet, a Kelvin diplomat continued, one relatively young species has brought us to our knees simply by leaving. What does that say about us? Velther had no answer. On Earth, Shinari monitored communications from across council space. Her intelligence division had observation posts hidden in dead systems near major council worlds. They couldn't be detected, but they could watch and listen. The reports were grim. 4 council species were on the brink of civil war. 7 had seen their governments collapse. Dozens were experiencing famine as agricultural systems failed. Medical crises swept through populations as human-designed treatments stopped working. They're dying, her assistant said quietly. Yes, Nari replied. Should we tell the president? She knows. Everyone knows. Don't you feel anything for them? Nari looked at the data streams, showing suffering on a scale hard to comprehend. I feel what they felt when they classified us as servants. When they planned to attack Earth. When they laughed at our generosity behind closed doors. She turned to her assistant. I feel exactly what they taught me to feel. Nothing. A message arrived on Nari's private channel. It was from a council world, sent through black market channels, probably costing everything the sender owned. Please, it read. Not for the council. For the children. We have children dying. Human medicine could save them. please." Nari stared at the message for a long time. Then she deleted it. Later, she would wonder if she was becoming what the Council had been. If silence could be too cruel, too absolute. But for now, she remembered the contingency plans, the military assessments, the casual cruelty of beings who thought themselves superior. "Let them learn," she whispered to the empty room. "Let them learn what silence costs." In the observation posts, human watchers saw Council ships approaching each other with weapons armed. They saw colony stations go dark. They saw riots on once peaceful worlds, and they said nothing. The silence of humanity had become a force of nature, reshaping the galaxy more thoroughly than any war could have. Because war at least acknowledged that the enemy mattered. Humans had decided the Council didn't matter at all. That was somehow worse. 18 months after humanity's withdrawal, the cascade failures began. Ru Taiyang sat in a hidden observation station at the edge of the Terminus sector, documenting the collapse in real time. He was a historian, tasked with recording this moment for future generations. What he was seeing would be studied for centuries. Station 3 reports total infrastructure failure on Vulcar Prime, his assistant reported. Population of 4 billion. Estimates 70% casualty rate within 6 months. Taiyang typed the information into his log. No emotion showed on his face. He couldn't afford emotion. Not when there were 12 other worlds in similar situations. Station 7 reports civil war on the Grecian homeworld. 3 factions fighting over remaining functional technology. All of it human-made, all of it failing. More typing, more documentation. Taiyang had studied the fall of civilizations throughout history. He never thought he would watch it happen in real time, across hundreds of worlds simultaneously. The numbers were staggering. The Galactic Council had relied on human innovation so completely that when it vanished, everything built in the last 30 years began to crumble. Worse, the failures triggered secondary and tertiary effects that the Council was helpless to stop. Food shortages led to riots. Riots led to government collapse. Government collapse led to infrastructure neglect. Infrastructure neglect led to more system failures. It was a downward spiral with no bottom in sight. "Sir," his assistant said quietly, "do you think we went too far?" Taiyang looked at her. She was young, barely 20. She hadn't lived through the humiliation. She hadn't read the Council's internal documents that classified her species as livestock. "No," he said. "We went exactly far enough." On the Council homeworld, former Speaker Velther stood in the ruins of the Great Chamber. Half the seats were empty. Half the remaining delegates were only there to announce their species' withdrawal from the Council. "This is humanity's fault," one delegate shouted. "They sabotaged us." "No," another replied tiredly. "We sabotaged ourselves. We built our entire civilization on the backs of one species, then insulted them. What did we expect? They should have been grateful. We gave them a place in the galaxy. We gave them nothing. They gave us everything. And we were too arrogant to see it." The argument dissolved into chaos. Velther watched species that had cooperated for centuries tear at each other with accusations and blame. The Council was eating itself alive. His personal communicator buzzed. It was an emergency message from his homeworld. The medical crisis had worsened. His own grandchildren were sick, and the hospital's human-designed diagnostic equipment had failed. They were dying, and no one knew how to save them. Velther left the chamber without a word. His reign as Council Speaker was over. Everything was over. 3 Council species attempted to raid human territory, hoping to steal technology or capture human engineers. It was an act of desperation, and it went exactly as well as expected. The first fleet jumped into human space near a remote colony. They didn't even get close. Automated defense platforms destroyed every ship in 7 minutes. No warnings, no communications. Just efficient, devastating violence. The Second Fleet tried to be sneaky, using stealth technology. Human sensors detected them anyway. This time, instead of destroying them immediately, the defense systems disabled their ships and left them drifting. The crews were rescued by their own people weeks later, traumatized but alive. The message was clear. Humans could have killed them but chose not to. The mercy was somehow more terrifying than the violence. The Third Fleet never made it into human space. Human ships intercepted them at the border. For the first time in 18 months, a human voice spoke to the Council. "Turn back," the message said. No threats, no explanations. Just 2 words. The fleet commander, desperate and foolish, ignored the warning. The human ships opened fire. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Advanced weapons that the Council had never seen reduced their ships to debris in moments. The human vessels didn't even take damage. This time, the humans let 2 ships escape. They wanted survivors. They wanted the story to spread. After that, no one else tried to raid human space. Shin Nari compiled the intelligence reports with growing concern. Not concern for the Council, but concern about what humanity was becoming. "We're watching genocide on a massive scale," she told President Choi in a private meeting. "Not caused by weapons or war, but by our absence." "They're choosing this," Choi replied. "We're not killing them. We're simply not saving them anymore. Is there a difference?" Choi was quiet for a moment. "Yes, the difference is that we owe them nothing. We gave freely for 30 years. They took and planned to take more by force. Now they live with the consequences. Some of them were innocent. Some never knew about the Council's policies. And some humans died in their colonies when the Council delayed medical supplies for bureaucratic reasons. Some humans were killed in accidents that intelligence suggests were deliberate. Some humans lived their entire lives being treated as useful animals." Choi's voice was cold. "Every society has innocence. That didn't stop the Council from planning our suppression." Nari said nothing. She understood the logic. She even agreed with it. But watching entire civilizations collapse was different from reading about it in reports. "How long do we maintain the silence?" she asked. "As long as it takes." "For what?" Choi looked out the window at Earth's skyline. "For them to understand what they lost. Not just the technology, not just the trade, but the chance to have humanity as a friend instead of a ghost." Across Council space, the understanding was starting to sink in. In broken cities and failing stations, in dying colonies and abandoned outposts, the survivors were learning a harsh lesson. Humanity had been kind, not because they were weak, but because they chose to be. And when that choice was betrayed, they simply made a different choice. They chose silence. They chose absence. They chose to let the Council face the universe without the safety net they had provided for 3 decades. On a dying station in neutral space, a young alien engineer finally managed to repair a human-designed power system. It had taken her 6 months and the combined knowledge of 40 specialists. The system powered up, providing light and heat to 10,000 desperate refugees. She cried with relief and joy. Then she cried with rage and grief, because she finally understood the depth of human genius that had gone into the system. Something that would have taken humans hours to repair had taken her people months. And there were thousands of such systems across the galaxy, all failing and not enough engineers to fix them. "We treated them like children," she said to herself. "But we were the children, and we sent our parents away." The power system ran for 3 weeks before failing again. This time, she couldn't fix it. She didn't understand it well enough. None of them did. The station went dark, and its population scattered to wherever would take them. This scene repeated across hundreds of worlds. Brief victories followed by inevitable failures. Hope crushed by the reality that they simply didn't understand what humans had built. Ru Taiyang documented it all. The fall of civilizations, the death of the Galactic Council, and the birth of a new truth in the galaxy. Humanity had been the foundation of everything. And when the foundation walked away, everything else fell dot in his quiet moments. Taiyang wondered what would be built from the ruins. He wondered if humanity would ever speak again. He wondered if the silence would become permanent. Then he returned to his documentation, recording the cost of cruelty, measured in fallen stars. 5 years had passed since humanity spoke its last word to the Galactic Council. Bei Seijun stood on the observation deck of the human diplomatic vessel, New Dawn, watching the remnants of what used to be Council space. Where once there were thousands of thriving civilizations, now there were scattered survivors clinging to whatever worked. 3 entire species had gone extinct. Not from war, not from plague, but from infrastructure collapse they couldn't reverse. Their populations had been too dependent on systems they didn't understand. When those systems failed, they lacked the knowledge to return to simpler technologies. They had forgotten how to survive without human innovation. It's like watching the Bronze Age collapse, Seijun said to his aide. Complete societal regression in a single generation. Dozens more species had fallen back to pre-industrial technology levels. Their ships didn't fly anymore. Their communication networks were silent. Their cities were dark. They would rebuild eventually, but it would take centuries. The surviving civilizations existed in isolated pockets. Small networks of worlds that had maintained enough basic technology to function. They lived carefully, rationing what resources they had, knowing that one more system failure could be the one that ended them and through it all. Humanity had watched in silence, but humanity itself had thrived. Without the burden of supporting the Council, without constantly sharing technology freely, human civilization had exploded in growth and advancement. Human colonies now numbered in the thousands. Human technology had advanced 50 years in 5. Human culture had flourished without the pressure to conform to Council expectations. The economy was strong. The people were united in a way they had never been before. Adversity and isolation had made humanity stronger. Yuna commanded the human reclamation fleet, a group of ships tasked with selective engagement with the surviving species. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, reviewing the latest requests for aid. There were hundreds. Most would be denied. Sir, her communications officer said, another delegation has arrived at the border. They're asking for instructions on how to repair their medical systems. Which species? The Vril. They've been waiting for 3 days. Yuna checked her records. The Vril had been one of the Council species that voted against human membership on key committees. Their internal documents had referred to humans as useful but limited. Send them the basic repair manual, she said. Nothing more. They're asking for direct technical support. They have critically ill children. So did we, when the Council delayed our medical supplies. Send the manual. If they're smart enough, they'll figure it out. The officer hesitated, then complied. Yuna felt nothing. Compassion was reserved for those who had earned it. On the ruins of the Council homeworld, Velther lived in a small shelter near the abandoned Council chambers. His species had fallen far. The great cities were mostly empty now. The population had declined by 90%. He was old, his scales dull with age and hunger. His grandchildren had died years ago. Most of his family was gone. He survived only because he was too stubborn to die. A shuttle landed near his shelter. Velther didn't bother to look. It would be another group of survivors searching for food or usable technology. There was nothing here for them, but then he heard a sound he hadn't heard in 5 years. Human voices. He stumbled out of his shelter and saw them. 5 humans in clean uniforms, carrying equipment. They weren't there for him. They were surveying the ruins, taking measurements, documenting the collapse. Velther approached them slowly. The humans watched him come but didn't acknowledge him. It was as if he were a ghost. "Please," he croaked. His voice was rough from disuse. "Please, I just want to know why." The humans continued their work. "I was council speaker. I can tell you anything you want to know about the council. I can help you understand what happened." No response. "We're dying. My people are dying. I know we wronged you, but please, show mercy." One of the humans, a woman with cold eyes, finally looked at him. She didn't speak. She just looked at him the way someone might look at an insect. Then she turned back to her work. Velther felt something break inside him. Not anger, not grief, just acceptance. He finally understood. Humanity didn't hate the council. Hatred would have been something. Humanity simply didn't care. The council was beneath notice, beneath consideration, beneath mercy. He walked back to his shelter and never approached humans again. At the edge of human space, small delegations from surviving species continued to arrive. They didn't come with apologies. They had learned that apologies meant nothing to humanity now. They came with requests to simply learn how to fix a water recycler, how to calibrate a power system, how to manufacture basic medicines. Simple things that they had forgotten in their reliance on human generosity. Maisejun met with each delegation personally. His job was to evaluate whether they deserved help. A representative from the Kelvin species stood before him. She was the same diplomat who had spoken truth in the council chamber years ago. "We don't ask for forgiveness," she said. "We don't ask for friendship. We ask only for knowledge to survive. Why should we help you?" Seijen asked. "Because your species is better than ours. Because you can afford to be merciful when we could not. That's not a reason. That's an appeal to our vanity." The Kelvin diplomat straightened. "Then I have no reason to give. We are dying. You have the knowledge to save us. The choice is yours." Seijen studied her for a long moment. "Your species was one of the few that questioned the council's treatment of humanity. Your internal documents show you argued against classifying us as servants. Yes, we were outvoted. You were outvoted, and yet you stayed silent. You let it happen, to our eternal shame." Seijen made a decision. "We will send technical advisors to your worlds. They will teach your people to maintain the systems we built. But they will not do the work for you. You must learn." The Kelvin diplomat's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Don't thank us. Prove you deserve this chance." As she left, Seijen's aide approached. "Sir, we've denied 30 requests today. Why did you approve this one?" "Because they admitted fault without making excuses. Because they asked to learn rather than be saved. Because sometimes mercy serves a purpose." He paused. "And because we need some species to survive and remember. The galaxy needs to remember what happens when humanity is betrayed." Oh, Yuna's fleet arrived at a world that had sent a coded request through back channels. The world had been a minor council member, unremarkable in every way. But human intelligence had discovered something interesting about them. 30 years ago, when human colonies were struggling, this world had quietly sent aid. Not through official channels, which would have been noticed and punished by the council, but through private ships marked as regular trade. Food, medicine, basic supplies. They had helped when it would have cost them to be discovered. Yuna stood on the surface of their world. It was in bad shape, but not as bad as others. They had managed to maintain basic infrastructure through ingenuity and determination. Their leader met her, an elderly being who remembered the old days. "We didn't expect you to remember," the leader said. "We remember everything," Yuna replied. "Some debts are worth paying." Her fleet spent 3 months there. They repaired systems, taught engineers, shared knowledge. They didn't just fix problems. They ensured this species could stand on its own. When they left, the world was functioning. Not at council levels, but sustainably. They would survive and rebuild. Why did we help them so much? One of Yuna's officers asked. Because they helped us when they didn't have to. Because they risked themselves for strangers. Because that's the kind of civilization worth preserving. Back on Earth, President Choi addressed the World Council. The chamber was different now. Larger, more confident. Humanity had emerged from isolation stronger than ever. We have maintained silence for 5 years, she said. We have watched civilizations fall. We have denied aid to most who asked. We have let the galaxy learn the cost of betraying us. She paused. But we are not the Council. We will not let cruelty define us forever. Murmurs filled the chamber. Humanity will begin selective engagement. We will help those who demonstrate genuine change. Those who treat us with respect, who ask to learn rather than be saved, who acknowledge their past wrongs without excuses. These civilizations will find us willing partners. And the others? Someone asked. The others will live with the teachers they chose to be. We will not punish them further, but we will not save them either. The vote passed unanimously. Bei Seojun prepared for his first official communication with the surviving council species. After 5 years of silence, humanity would speak again, but the message would not be what they expected. No forgiveness, no return to the old ways. Just a simple statement. You taught us our place in your universe. We accepted the lesson. Now live with the teachers you chose to be. The message was broadcast across known space. It reached every surviving world, every struggling colony, every remnant of the council. Some species heard it and despaired. Others heard it and understood. A few heard it and began the hard work of genuine change. Humanity had learned that silence could be the most powerful weapon. They had learned that absence could reshape galaxies more than presence ever could.